Hello and welcome to 30 Days of Hoya. Today we take a look at Hoya linearis. You can see a bit better of this plant in the second frame. It's a bit wet, it just took a shower. I brought it in from the outside. This is one of the plants that I have been trying to grow outside during the summer, but it's getting a bit too hot and I can see that some of the bottom leaves are not looking so happy, so I decided to actually bring it in. This plant is native to the Himalayan region and it is one of those cool growing Hoyas. So temperatures from 10 degrees of Celsius to 25 degrees of Celsius will be just fine for this plant. And that is just from 50 to 80 degrees of Fahrenheit. I got this plant last year. These plants here that are looking somewhat nice. These were small cuttings that I was able to get last April, I believe. They were about this size. These are the cuttings that I rooted myself. And when I got my hoyalinearis, it was about that size. So it is a very good grower. It has been growing really nicely. The second plant that you can see here is a division of a larger plant. We received a bunch of hoyalinearises of a nice size last year, but I wasn't able to get them. They were all sold out, but I was able to get this division. So it's not the best looking one. It has some leaves that are missing, and I received it like this, and I keep cutting it back, and I think I will probably cut it back a bit more. I will leave this one because this part of the division looks nice, but I will probably cut back this so I can get more propagations, I guess, and then I can just stick them back into the pot. I grew this Hoya in my northwest facing window, but also in the winter I grew it on my Hoya shelf, or actually hanging on the side of the shelf next to the LED light. So this wasn't getting any direct light from the LEDs, it was just more of the light from the side, if you can understand. Maybe it's clearer if you watch my Hoya tour. This really did grow really nicely all throughout the summer and throughout the winter, and the leaves are pubescent. They are very thin and they are enclosed to get this needle shape. So if you take a look at the back of the leaf, you can see that it's actually enclosed leaf. When you put this in a brighter light, it will get slightly paler, and then the tips of the leaves will get a bit reddish. I don't know if the camera will be able to show this, but just the very tip of the leaf will get slightly red. And that's not showing on the small ones because they have been indoors all throughout the year, or actually they are just fairly recent. This Hoya is very easy to propagate. I water propagated both of these, so you can just take a cutting, and honestly I will probably just cut this one right here because there is just this naked vine. You can leave some of those nodes there because there is a potential that they will grow, like here. Hoyalinearis is a bit sensitive to overwatering, so I have it in a very barky mix, maybe even a bit more bark. This is now moist because it was just watered, it was outside, and it didn't get water for a long time. And you can see that the plant, as it hangs, it kind of tends to unpot itself because the mix is so airy. So I keep placing bark around the roots. It doesn't seem to be bothered by this at all. It keeps growing, so I really hope that it will not fall out of the pot. But so far it hasn't been bothered by this. I water this Hoya every 10 or 12 days. Sometimes I go 2 weeks without watering, which is not something that you should do, but it's in a very well draining mix, and I really don't worry about watering this one. I don't worry that I will overwater it because I have been taking care of it for some time now, over than a year, and I really didn't have any issues with that. Hoyalinearis gets nice white flowers. I read that they have a lemony scent to them. Because this was a small cutting, I really didn't expect it to flower last year, but I do hope that it will flower this year. I read that this one requires longer nights to flower, so shorter days and longer nights. So that would mean that it would probably flower towards the winter, maybe fall or winter. For me, this hasn't been very difficult at all. I'm really not an overwaterer, so I don't have any issues with that. I know that this plant is very sensitive to rot, so make sure to pot it in a nice and loose mix. And if you need, you can even pin it down so it doesn't fall out from the pot like maybe mine is about to do. The only issue that I had with this plant is mealybugs. It is a magnet for mealybugs. All the time I can get some mealybugs on this plant, and I keep spraying them with hydrogen peroxide, removing them, but all the time I find some mealybugs here and there on this plant. I never really had any issues with other Hoyas, but on this one it's just a magnet for mealybugs. So be a bit careful because the leaves are a bit silvery green, or maybe towards the white because they're so pubescent, so maybe they will be hard to spot. But you know, inspect it and you will find some mealybugs. Right now, I'm able to find a mealybug, just a tiny one on the back of the leaf. And get ready for that close-up. I don't know, maybe the camera will not focus, but right here, in the crevice of the leaf, there is a tiny, tiny white mealybug. There you go. See? I cannot believe it. This was recently sprayed, but there you go. I'm able to find a tiny mealybug even now. This Hoya in Europe is not so difficult to find, and it's fairly cheap. You can find a nice large plant in a garden center from time to time. It's not super common, but maybe once or twice a year you will be able to find it. A nice and large plant. In United States, I think it's more difficult to find, and I think it's quite expensive there. So maybe it's not available yet, but I do think it will become more and more available. I cannot not recommend it. For me, it really isn't difficult. It's been quite an easy Hoya and a lovely Hoya to have. If you're someone who overwaters your plants a lot, maybe be a bit more careful with this one, but if you can get it for a good deal, I would say go for it. It's not that challenging, I don't think. Thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the video. I'm gonna go now and spray this to get rid of those mealybugs, and I will see you in our next 30 Days of Hoya.